So it's nice we talk about it because no one talks about this, especially among startups.
It's also, I think, exciting, but in the beginning was very scary.
It's a better company today. We have better figures, better engagement with clients. You have to do a relaunch.
90% of our staff is gone, and we have 90% of new people.
And it's a sign of strength.
Startup is a completely different kind of beast.
In all those cases, they don't have the good mentors and the good advisors. Because I'm a bit upset with this. We had to find an original name for the company.
You changed the logo, but you also changed the perception of the company from your clients.
BotTalk Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to BotTalk Podcast. Today is a special episode. We have a special guest, Laurent. And yeah, Laurent, please tell us about yourself, about Space and Lemon, yeah.
I'm Laurent Burdin. The name sounds French, and I am French from the south of France, but been living in Germany for a very long while. So I'm half German, half French. I founded Space and Lemon Innovation exactly 6 years ago, and I've relaunched it exactly 1 year ago. I think we'll talk about this today. Space and Lemon Innovation is a trend scouting and innovation agency. We look at all the trend development in the world. We make sense of it and do some consulting to clients, and then we do the next step of identifying projects for larger corporations and even go with our Berlin office. We are based in Hamburg like you are, and in our Berlin office also doing some concept and visual prototyping development. This is what we do at Space and Lemon Innovation. Myself, I'm completely into the startup ecosystem. I love to have offices in co-working space where you are, BotTalk as well, Beta House in Hamburg and in Berlin. I've been mentoring startup for a while. So I love this energy which is around it.
Yeah, great. And the topic that we thought we discussed today is relaunch. What is it? Why do you need a relaunch as a company? Just a small history of how you came in contact, and of course your insights on relaunching your company.
Yeah, relaunching sounds very easy. It's very difficult because you have to be as a founder, and you've done a relaunch in January. We've done one just 12 months ago, exactly 12 months ago. You have to be aware first that you need to relaunch something. You've done a launch and you need to tell the story differently. So first of all, it's among the founders to say, we're ready to do this and we have to do it regularly. I believe we'll talk about it. But above all, if I'm defining relaunch is a wake-up call. Is really to wake up your colleagues, your employees, your boss, your community, but also your client. Because it's just the attention you have to clients, we both in B2B, is really declining after a while. And then you have to work on the story, on the visual, on what you tell, and even pivoting. So it's important to find the right moment, which is like 3 years or 5 years. But I think latest is 5 years to really consider doing a relaunch.
Okay, great. You talk about 3 years or 5 years and a wake-up call. When do you define this wake-up call? What are maybe tell signs? And if you're not comfortable talking about Space and Lemon, you could talk about us, because that's how I learned about a relaunch. You came to me, I think, a year ago or so, maybe a couple of years, and then said, you've been on the market for almost 3 years. You have to prepare for the relaunch. What were the signs that made you think that, for example, my company needed a relaunch?
First of all, in BotTalk, because you were moving, you were pivoting in a way. You were really just testing and testing and testing, and you were fixing the things, and then you were just not moving any longer. So you had really your proposition. But then if you have a new proposition, you have to do a relaunch. So it's just automatic. That's something which is very rational. So I would really endeavor any startups, any smaller company in B2B, any company in B2B, large company in B2B, to do a relaunch. Maybe I'll come back to this, but this is just rational. You know, you're moving, you have a new rational, you have new proposition, you need to relaunch this. But there's something which is more irrational, which is emotional. You have to remotivate everyone, really. And doing a relaunch is a great exercise to remotivate yourself, everyone around, which I talked about. So it's really motivation also to the market. So, and to mark this, you have to have all the things you do in a relaunch. So you have a new logo, you maybe have a new name, you organize a kind of big bang, which is the relaunch. So, and it's very, among the startup, people don't use that very often, okay? Sometimes they have like advices from more like, I believe, old school marketers, where you say, you know, you have a brand, don't touch the brand and do nothing, and so on. So we don't hear to those really old school voices. Change the logo, make a few changes, tell your story. It's only B2B. I might be different with a consumer. I'm not even sure. Just take an example. I'm SAP. Mm-hmm. SAP is not relaunching itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're acquiring companies one after the other, but I see no relaunch initiative, nothing which will remotivate sort of everyone to do it. They have a good strategy. They have put it on the table, and they are doing all the efforts to do this, but they haven't relaunched. So there's a crucial moment to do it. Mm-hmm. So it's nice we talk about it because no one talks about this, especially among startups.
Yeah, I noticed that when relaunch happens in the bigger companies, I've been through a couple of them in the bigger environments, in the big publishing houses. Yeah, it's almost always focused on, yeah, let's relaunch our website. And then it's for the 90% of the time, that's it. But you touched upon, okay, you changed the logo, but you also changed the perception of the company from your clients, as well as a perception inside of the company. Maybe you can touch on that dynamic. You know, how does it change from the outside and from the inside?
Well, you've got the inside and the outside. So in the inside, it's about motivation. It's about existing. It's about just being excited again. So relaunch is really just to have the thing reexactable. Because you remember that when you founded the company, that was really exciting. And I remember the time. I remember when I founded my company, it was very exciting. And by the way, things went so well. That's the case for you. That's the case for most of the company at the beginning. But after a while, there is this so-called fatigue, which is coming, which is completely normal. So then you do restart. This is what a relaunch is. And for the inside, it's a beautiful exercise. And if you have everyone in a startup participate to the relaunch, then everyone is again part of it. And for the inside, I would add, if you construct in a company, especially if you're scaling up, you would have a lot of employees and colleagues and maybe partners who come after the foundation of the company. So that they haven't lived, you know, the thrilling times of the debuting everything. So, and then you organize a new thrilling time is really the relaunch. So that's for the inside. Yeah. The outside is more obvious, I would say, because it's about marketing. It's about telling a new story. And if you've pivoted, you can tell the story. What I've seen for you, BotTalk, and for other startups who's made that exercise of relaunch, it's, hey, you get your act together. Because then everything is fine. I mean, you've gone through all the details. So your presentation are better, your storytelling is better, and you even come up to ideas like producing this podcast. So maybe you don't even open up to new ideas. So, and this is working on the marketing outside.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. When we talked first about the relaunching of BotTalk, I personally seen the necessity from inside the company, but it's also, I think, exciting. But in the beginning, was very scary to do that. As you said, well, don't touch your brand, don't touch anything. You know, as soon as it's working, it could be worse. But I can attest that after relaunching, after changing so many things, after also, to be honest, like 90% of our staff is gone, and we have 90% of new people inside of the company, which is important also to take them into this journey. I feel, personally better than ever, and sure than ever that that was important and also a great thing to do. And so thank you for your insights. Maybe a couple of insights. You said Space and Lemon relaunched exactly 1 year ago. What had happened in the year?
But first of all, we made a major change. We changed the name. So during the thrilling time of foundation, we had to find an original name for the company, which has its story in itself, called Space and Lemon. But we didn't have the genre, we didn't have the category in it. So we're working with larger corporates, and it was really difficult for someone to sell us inside a company because no one knew what we do. So what we've done is we put the words innovations at the end, which is Space and Lemon Innovations. And it's so easy and made a huge difference in what we say, because then we could shorten it up nicely in saying it's SLI, which just sounds great. You can boast about it. Oh, SLI, SLE, very nice. But then it solved a lot of things. And then from that point, a new proposition. We worked on a why and what. We work on visuals also to change the visual. We change the story. We change what we said. And above all, we told about changing it. Okay? So we made a point everywhere to say, yes, we are relaunching the company. What has happened is it's a better company today, a year later. We have better figures, we have better engagement with clients. But overall, what I was so fascinated about, and although I've been working on relaunch for years, I've seen it, it was a sign to our clients that we are a good company, that we are a successful company even. Because if you do a relaunch, it means, hey, well, they have a program for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I really underestimated that did that job. And say, don't do relaunch because you're not well, but you do a relaunch because you're well and you want to be better for the next years. And this is what's happening with BotTalk. I would just see the same way, to say you made the relaunch, and it's a sign of strength in saying, if we make a relaunch, it's going to last for a few years. So we are well established, and we've got figures, which is the case, good investors and so on, which is the case for you. So that was really a surprise for me to say it has also this value of a relaunch.
Yeah, great. And that's a great point. So relaunching a company shows your customers essentially that you have a roadmap and you plan this roadmap. And this is something that is not done by accident, but you are really, really caring. And so the inertia that many companies fall into is not there, and they can, especially in your case, like innovations is very important. I think you touched upon startups and that they underestimated relaunching. Can you explain why does it happen? Why not many startups think that relaunching is important, otherwise than just being scared?
No, because first of all, you are busy, especially in the first 2 to 3 years anyway, with just building up the proposition, doing the job, maybe doing the software, which you're busy with, just motivating investors to make the first invest. And some of the startups that just are so busy with this, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Sometimes I see them like 7 years. And it's a very long time before redoing a relaunch. What I've observed is, in all those cases, they don't have the good mentors and the good advisors. Because I'm a bit upset with this. Some of the advisors and some of the marketers, I would say, they're still a little bit really old school. You've done a brand and you don't touch the brand, which I can understand if you are a large, fast-moving consumer good in a supermarket. You're not going to change the name and maybe just very subtly the logo, but not in B2B. It doesn't exist. So I think there's a lot of bad advice around it sometimes in accelerators to say, you have to build your brand and stick to the brand, but the world is not working like this. It's not linear any longer. It's just moving. So I just ask any startups, and I meet is after 1 to 3 years, and especially if you pivot, you have to change things. And I've seen great name change, by the way. I've these great names. I can name them. There's one called Mercier, which is a scientific platform from Berlin, and now in the US, they've changed the name to Mercier. We have here from Hamburg, the Tumor Bank, which used to be called completely different. So in saying tomorrow, you were really having the message in the name as well. And they throw that in the bin and restart it again. And it helped. So, like I said, I'm upset for those people who say it doesn't help, because there are quite a lot of people called marketers who are still in this old school thing. Yes.
Yeah. So would you say that maybe taking the advice of big companies or people behind big companies for startups is not such a good idea, because a startup is a completely different kind of beast than an established business?
It is a completely different beast. The challenges are completely different. I would make a difference between person and corporate. You've got two types of person who would advise from corporation. Those who have an individual opinion of things, and they would ask for a relaunch. Or those who've been really formatted in corporation, where you, for very good reasons, you don't really change, you don't really relaunch that regularly, and so on. Those people are not very helpful. Or those people are helpful, but their opinion is not very helpful. Okay. So, but it's about the startup to choose their own advisors. I mean, it's up to them to just have a set of advisors, because some of them don't relaunch because they don't even have like an external view. So, yes, just be new school in a startup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that helped me as a startup. I never heard about relaunch during our accelerator, and been through several of them already. And it's never been the case, you guys. And many startups that we've been, many accelerators that we've been into, had startups that were like 5, 6, 7 years old. And this was very interesting that you essentially was you were the first mentor that told us, that we could look into relaunching. So yeah, thank you once again for that. And I think that is a very underestimated thing to do for a startup.
And well, this is, if you are an early startup, it is, and if you've been early startup in acceleration, in accelerators, it is not the objective of the accelerator to talk about the relaunch, but rather about the launch. But if you are more, let's say, an older startup coming into an accelerator, I think this has to, the accelerators has to motivate the startup to rethink everything. And maybe we can decide here in this podcast to say any startup started from day one, you just ask yourself the question after 3 years, after 4 years, after 5 years. So you really mark the thing and say, is that time for a relaunch? Maybe it's even a big bang. And I've been observing startup who's just been sort of going well, but not so well, and never changed the name and never did anything. This is not a successful thing. That's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to project yourself, to just do a relaunch exercise. By the way, we had a major relaunch exercise in the last 10 years was Facebook naming itself Meta, which is strategically and from a relaunch perspective something which is very, very strong. Mm-hmm. And they have the name of the category into the name of the company as well. So which is a good sign for the rest of the market.
Yeah, so this is something that I think one of the takeaways that listeners and viewers can take. Relaunching is, we are changing the name, but also, as you mentioned in several occasions, in several companies, big and small, establishing your category inside of your, or incorporating the category inside of your brand is very important to kind of communicate, makes it easier to, and quicker, I think, to communicate this elevator pitch. If you say Space and Lemon innovations, well, it's pretty obvious what you guys are doing. Then try to do it in the second sentence and try to explain and transcoding and so on, as you used to do before. Because that's what I noticed from you. Your elevator pitch became much shorter with the name, and it's just straight to the point. Before that, it was also for me kind of harder to explain. Okay, we know Space and Lemon. Who are Space and Lemon? Well, let me explain in a couple of sentences what they do. And now it's much easier.
This is so easy, yeah. That's a new thought. We need to share that with the audience, because never heard that thought, Andrey, which you just put on the table, is in the relaunch. One of the objectives, which I never formulate, but you formulated, and I think this is an exercise any startup has to do when they do relaunch, is what is my place in the category? So you don't necessarily need to have the name. We need to have the name of the category in it. In BotTalk, maybe we can think about what it is, so it's easier. But after 3 years being on the market, for example, or 5 years being on the market, what is your place in the market you are? And I think we could, if we'd run a list, and maybe we'll do that of a tip list of 10, I would put that. This is completely new to me, never thought about it. Anyone relaunching is what is my place in a category. And if we take Meta, they decided to be slightly in another category. Yeah. So anyone watching this should look at what's your place in the category. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's especially important when you're a startup, because the goal of the startup is conquer the category or dominate the category. And maybe with the Facebook example, not a startup anymore, but still they seen the change. They seen that they're maybe not dominating the social media category anymore, not with all the audiences, not with the younger audience, and they had to reinvent or move to another category.
Yes, and what you say is what we in business, and I've been quite a while in business, I've learned from all the startups development in the last 7 years, I would say, is that the definition of it is a little bit different from what you do on classical business, is you just scope your market in your category, but you scope it that way that you could be a conquerant in it. This is what I'm taking your words, is you conquer that market. So I call it a niche, which you define, and you're number one in the niche, and you can grow from there. But I like the word of, you define the scope of your market, you conquer it. And after 3 years, if you haven't conquered the market, anyway, you have to pivot and redefine your scope to have a chance to be the number one in that place, or to make a point in that market. And if we look at Meta, this is what they've been doing. I mean, they have been dominating their own market of social media with slightly like just going backwards, which is normal, just a normal life thing. So they're redefining another category to conquer. So I think this is also great. We need to write this in the comments later on.
Yeah, great. One thing that you, Laurent, told was about also changing the seat of the company or extending. You are now in Berlin. You made a big deal out of this movement to Better House Berlin. What were you thinking behind this move, and how did it impact the whole relaunch?
There's been two levels there. First of all, the rational level in saying we want to enter something client has been asking us is do UX design and do visual prototyping and even do development. So that was something rational in saying, yeah, well, our category, we just extend the category a little bit to remain on that wordings. The other one is just emotional. If we are space and lemon innovations that happens just everywhere, but also above all in Berlin. So we wanted to be there. I personally wanted to be in Berlin. I came from Berlin to Hamburg when I started Space Element in Hamburg. I also, as a founder, thought that's great to be there. I love the fact we are in those two cities. And it gives you a complete different dimension. And what is lovely is when we recruit, anyone can decide. Do I want to live in Hamburg or in Berlin? Do I want to change? Which happens with one of our colleagues coming from Hamburg to Berlin. So I think this is a sign of freedom in a way.
Yeah, so location has a role, branding has a role, category, defining the category has a role, internal and external forces as well. All the great, I think, insights about relaunching, and especially what we covered, I think, in big companies versus small companies. Me myself, I could really once again attest that Relaunch really helped the company internally and externally. I was a bit on the internal part. I was very happy, but I was scared to communicate, and that's something. I was scared to communicate this change to the clients. But then, when I got the first feedback, that was completely different. As you said, it was for me. It was not the sign of weakness. They seen it completely different.
No, it's a sign of, and this is what I've been learning in the last 12 months on what we did, but also observing what you do. It's a confirmation of the model. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone who's buying into it it's a confirmation. Otherwise, you don't do a relaunch. So that's something which I mentioned that, completely underestimated. It was a surprise, never formulated that way. So maybe anyone can ask the question 3 years later or 5. I mean, latest is 5. And I think in doing this, there is something which is just in the air right now, is we are coming back to the offices as well. Mm-hmm. After the COVID time we had, and we need something to remotivate ourselves. So if anyone has been sort of waiting for a relaunch, just do it now. Take the opportunity of the fact that everyone is sort of coming back to the office to really remotivate, to re-excite the old system. Re-excite it, yes.
Yeah, definitely the case, and also reinvent the way you work. What I noticed before we relaunch, and what helped me to kind of be focused on the relaunch was we met after a long period of sitting in our home offices together. And we sat and just had a business conversation, then went somewhere to grab a drink or something like that. And then I realized how different people are in those social circumstances than they are in front of the camera, and how much difference it makes also to kind of formulate and maybe to tune this. There may be people that are very good behind the screen, but there's something that you need to have inside of the office, and that is completely different angle. And as you said, it's a great time also to rethink how you work, and maybe take this opportunity to relaunch.
Yeah, send a hook to everyone just so that you can come back to sort of half normal, but a little bit of normality. So yes, relaunch is key, underestimated.
Perfect. I think that's a great ending for the podcast. Thank you very much. Do follow BotTalk podcast, and of course Space and Lemon on Space and Lemon Innovations.
Yes.
On the social media, on LinkedIn. And Laurent, thank you very much for taking your time.
You're welcome.